no matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Live Well, Live Whole podcast series, where we inspire and empower mind, body, spirit, wholeness, and integration. I'm Marie Moeller, and I'm an author, intuitive, and a host of the Whole Soul Mastery podcast series. And I'm here today with Joseph Asterita. For most of his life, he read and followed the spiritual path through religion and metaphysical teachings, a path that now reflects in his metal art. He designs, fabricates, brazes, and welds metal into metaphysical geometric art for the purpose of bringing joy and light into the world. Most of his designs are centered on universal patterns and shapes that are mathematically balanced and reference the code of harmony or golden mean found in the atom, mathematics, music, architecture, as well as the human body. He started working with metal as a young sergeant in the Air Force, teaching aircraft structural metal repair during the Vietnam War. After the service, he worked in various aviation fields, one of which was an aircraft metal fabrication and repair specialist for a major airline, and later on in the Air National Guard during the First Gulf War as a reservist, also performing aircraft metal fabrication and repair. After retiring from his full-time corporate work, he first turned his artistic talent to writing. He published a book of poetry and an historical fiction novel. However, his positive experiences working with metal reemerged a few years back while assisting a friend in fabricating a metal art lawn structure. From then on, he has embraced metal art with a focus on geometry. And I want to welcome you, Joseph. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. It really is.
We're going to be talking about many things, from ley lines and sacred geometry, dowsing perhaps, and bringing in a wealth of your experience through many, many, many lives lived in one lifetime, it seems, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's been fun. It's been fun. Trying at times, but fun. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I thought you could start us off by just talking a little bit about what ley lines are for many people who've never heard about that before. I know that I'd heard about them, and when I met you, I learned a lot more about them. And I want you to share, some of that with our audience.
Sure. I think the easiest and quickest analogy on explaining what ley lines are is to take you to acupuncture or acupressure on the human body. And if you ever see the diagrams of acupressure points, acupuncture points, you'll see meridians that go around the human body. Okay, and those meridians are like energy lines that run around the body. And if there's something that's wrong with a meridian point, that's where they put the pressure or the acupuncture needle to help it balance and clear that one particular area. At least that's how I think that it works. So if you use that analogy of meridians going around your body, Gaia or Earth has got meridians that go around her, around the planet. And those are usually, they're called ley lines. And there's millions of them running all around the body, just around the Earth. And I got into studying these probably around 10 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago. I went to a class run by Bill Bueller, who's really good at this, who has subsequently passed over, and a book here that helped me a lot by Peter Champeau called the Gaia Matrix. After studying this book and talking to Peter And going out on my own, I got to be really proficient with finding ley lines using dowsing rods and pendulums and doing map dowsing. And I found some really beautiful places where you could actually go there and almost feel the energy and see how the ley lines have carved the planet because of the grid system, the energy that's running through it. Pilot Mountain in North Carolina is one particular place where you can find that and see that. So that being said, through guidance, and I started working with healing teams to clear blockages and ley lines. So just as acupuncture and acupressure help release pressure on the meridians that run around your body, there are blockage spots on the planet that need to be integrated and opened up so that the energy can flow again. Some of this came to me from reading and working with Bill Bueller and Peter. And so I got involved with that and finding them. And they're all over the place because these blockages occur when usually from human, sometimes from human conflict that causes a negative vibration, and it would block the energy grid. So we would find those and go out and clear them, integrate them into a light format so they would blend back in. They would be cleared, brought back into the light, and therefore the energy would flow again. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah. So and feel free to interfere or question,
Yes,
So
I definitely resonate with the metaphor of the body and acupuncture and acupressure. And we have our own traumas and things that we create in our choices and experiences. And we have those blockages that go on in our meridians that many people are unaware of until symptoms of some kind of illness or disease show up. And then we may start to pay more attention, right? But we can also do this clearing before we have big events in our bodies, right? And the same thing with the earth.
Correct. Yes, yeah. And so through guidance, I was made known of various places on the planet that were really had the energy blocked, and to go ahead and help clear these. And I worked together with some other light workers. So we did this team effort to locate these places and then do the integration of raising them into a light format so they would be neutralized, I guess is the best. So the energy
bringing it into neutrality. Yes.
Yeah. And you're on a lot of your messages about the light wolf and the dark wolf.
Right.
You have so-called negativity and so-called positivity, and they're constantly clocking with each other. Right. You can see that as how to clear a ley line. And what we would do is, there was this darkness and there was the light that was jammed and they were kind of banging against each other. We would go in and just kind of meld them, bring the darkness into the light, and then bring it up. So neutralize it into the higher dimensions through the higher consciousness, through the creator or the archangels or the elemental kingdom, etc. that we worked with also. So the team was multidimensional. Not only were there us folks here on the earth in this dimension, but also working with hierarchy, the company of heaven, more or less, both elemental spirits as well as archangels and masters, ascended masters.
A powerful team.
Yeah.
That
was a lot of fun too. Very powerful.
Very powerful.
And also not a job for the faint of heart, because when you do go to a site that has, say, negative energy, you pick that stuff up, if you're sensitive to that, and it can be pretty hard.
Yeah, I was going to say it could be pretty intense.
Yeah.
And each one on your team, in the earth realm anyway, that's incarnated, that was on your team, they each brought specific skills. And I'm sure you'll talk about that. But, when you find these places, how do you identify these places?
Well, this is kind of what I call Indiana Jones spirituality. We're out in the field, we walk, Indiana Jones had a revolver and a whip. We go out in the field with dowsing rods and crystals. And usually through guidance, somehow Spirit has a way of letting you know, and the Spirit's a poet in a way. So little hints here, little hints there, and you kind of connect the dots. Go, oh my gosh, we got to go and work on this. Or in other times, it's blatant right in your face. You got to do that. And we employed map dowsing just to verify the locations. So in map dowsing, you lay out a map and use a dowsing technique to find not only positive areas that need to be, we would go out and augment positive vortexes so they would even be stronger, and we would find the negative and integrate them, get rid of them, clear the blockages there, integrate the blockages. And you do this with guidance because we're part of a galactic team or a hierarchy team that is already doing this in the planet. And they need us boots on the ground more or less to go out and do that. So always try to make sure we do this in coordination with the higher realms.
Yeah.
That's done through meditation, what you feel in your heart.
Yeah. I was going to say, I wanted to show, you made me these bouncing rods. I have a little show and tell here.
Yeah.
Joseph made these for me, and these are things that turn, right? People can see. You ask questions, and when it's a yes, they cross, right? When you ask
that's one way of doing it, yeah. But yeah, that's the primary way of getting into it. You start that way, but it gets more sophisticated once you get adept at it.
Okay. And so, but there's other forms of dowsing. Is it a pendulum? I mean, I don't know much about this realm. So I know some people use pendulums to follow their guidance too, but it sounds like you use the dowsing rods and the maps and your intuition and guidance.
Yeah, they both work well in their particular field. It's kind of hard to use a pendulum when you're out in the forest walking and there's a wind blowing, or you climb the side of a hill. So that's where the dowsing rods are more for outside field work.
Yes.
And this is my own progression. Other workers may find it differently.
Right.
And I use the pendulum for verification and mainly inside work.
I see. That's helpful. That's actually really helpful. I hope it's helpful to people.
Yeah, and then using the dowsing rods, I found out there are different types of ley lines because I don't have them with me. But in other words, when we out looking for a ley line, we find that sometimes the dowsing rods would open up like this and show, it's going this way and that way. And other times we find it and they would cross. So I'm realizing through that there are different type of energies that are on these lines.
Right.
And some of them are a vortex, while others are a solid stream. It's electromagnetic, however, not only that cannot be detected on this realm, this dimension, but on a higher dimension, which is, in the way these dowsing rods and pendulums work, our aura connects with this energy and somehow gets through our body and moves the rods accordingly. And you have to really be tuned into this. And it's a skill that can be developed through meditation and just being a clear, as much as possible in your heart to be a clear channel. So you do tune in to the right frequency in the higher self, because there could be static in between that give you a false reading.
It is a refinement process. I know that in my own experience as a channel, how I channeled, 20 years ago is different because I've grown.
Yeah, right? No, we evolved into this. Now, you had asked about our team member. When we go out into the field, it's really, kind of a lot of fun. We're out, we're dressed, we go through the forest. We have the map, we've done the dowsing ahead of time. And I'm the guy who gets everybody where they need to be. I do the dowsing and I get my team members, 2 women in particular who are really sensitive, psychic, spiritual ladies. And once we find the spot, they tune into it to determine what the blockage is. And sometimes it's pretty intense. If I could say one location we went to was a really intense blockage where a Native American family was slaughtered by another Native tribe. And don't ask me what the story was about that, but the mother of the family saw her own family children be executed. And she was in trauma and shock and could not cross over. And our team went in there and communicated with her and felt her pain and agony. And they were in trauma themselves to unite. This is part of the integration program. Get into that pain and agony and talk to the spirit to help her clear that, come back to a neutral state, so then she could cross over.
Wow.
And I am standing there totally helpless. You know, I got them there, and I see my friends in my team going through this trauma and near crying and screaming along with her. But to help her get through this, and I just stood there. I mean, I'm kind of, what can I do? What can I do? I can't do anything. I got them there. Now it's their job. You know?
Right. And you're holding space.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and then it goes back to neutral, and it's all clear, and you can feel the energy lift. And sometimes when a soul crosses over from a blocked area, you know, as they ascend back up, they create a positive vortex, and you can feel that. It's just wonderful feeling when you do that. Just, it was ecstatic at times. Sometimes you feel very little. Other times it's like, wow, beautiful, you know, and their love and gratitude for helping them cross over.
And that positive portal, does it stay open as a positive portal?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It just depends. We try to neutralize it so it's back to normal,
Yes.
as opposed to being positive. Our job is to neutralize it, integrate it back into the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neutrality is wholeness and the integrated reflection. Yes.
Yeah. And at times we get we get signals that we're doing a good job. You know, like we be walking through the woods, and we clear we get a positive spot and enhance it.
Yes.
And I remember once talking to one of the team members. I said, I really hope this is working, you know, because it feels good. And then, like, we'd hear a crack, and this old dead branch would fall off a tree like 30 feet away and come down. And okay, that's a sign, you know, it's working. And one time we were going up to clear on a hillside that was way in the woods, and we were using GPS on an iPhone to get to it. We had mapped out, but once you're out in the woods, believe me, you can get lost real easy. The compass was kind of shifting, and I had my iPhone and the GPS disconnected. I just couldn't get a signal anymore. So I hit, you know, got rid of the screen, put my iPhone in my pocket, and we were hiking down this ravine and going up the other side, getting closer to where we had to raise the energy of this already positive spot to make it like a beacon of light as we were guided. And my iPhone turns on, and full blast is playing the Ode to Joy, you know, Beethoven's fourth movement. That's coming through my iPhone. And not only is it playing that, it's doing it. There was a video of the French aerobatic team, jet fighters, Mirages, doing aerobatics in tune with Ode to Joy. And it comes through my iPhone. I go, what the heck is that all about? You know? So it's
you can't make this stuff up. You can't.
Got it? You know, now I had listened to that months ago, and it was probably on my Safari sub list on my iPhone, but boy, I never, you know, how did it get to that particular thing through all the different steps that you had to go through to select it? Did it automatically as we were approaching this energy center.
After it had been turned off. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I with it off already. So yeah, back to the neutral position. So, you know, these are like spirit telling you, good work. You know, you're on we're here with you. We're with you. And you can feel it at times when you get out there.
Yes.
When you do the particular clearing steps and ceremonies, usually we use the 4 directions, 4 gates, 4 portals. So.
It's powerful work you are doing, and the earth needs the stewards and the conduits that you are to do the healing that you do, because everyone is called. Everyone is called to do what is theirs to do. And you listen, right? This is something that you each were guided, and you connected as a team, and you've hooked up with other teams that do this, right? Yeah. There's other teams that are doing this clearing around the globe.
Yes. Right now I work with a team in California, Mount Shasta, one in Arizona, and one here in North Carolina. And I know there are other teams out there, and we don't get together that much, and we don't even know they exist, but I can tell through what other people say that there are other teams out there doing clearings or integrations. Mm-hmm. And it's probably better that way. This way you don't get into any personality type of things. I think when spirit sets up these teams that we kind of like fall into, fall into is the personalities match to a degree, you know.
Right. No, there has to be a synergy among you to bring the neutrality that you're ushering through. So
And I got a message once from Gaia about earth healing. You know, this came through loud and clear. You know, used to use my old radio military talk. It came through loud and clear. She says, I don't need to be healed. I just need intelligent companionship, which to me was very profound. You know, so we are companions with Gaia and making these integrations of these dark areas and light areas and balancing them so she can do her ascension process as she's going through now.
Yeah. Wow. That was powerful.
Yeah. And just to take this one step further, not to confuse the audience about ley lines and how they work, you know, Gaia is a high intelligent being, a planetary being with an entire kingdom under her, an elemental kingdom. She's got brothers and sisters. In the solar system, the other planets have also Gaia-like spirits.
Yes.
That are going through probably a similar process of ascension because of the process that the galaxy going into a higher vibration area. And there are planetary ley lines that go from planets to planets. And once I started studying those and seeing the geometry on how all that works, it's just amazing, the geometry, sacred geometry that exists in our solar system, and how the ley lines that run through planets that are constantly dynamic and moving. And as they move around, they form energy grid patterns that are just beautiful. So
can you
that's the next step, you know?
Expansive. It's so expansive.
Yeah.
And that's how our infinite creation is. It is always expanding, right? We can contract for a time and blocks and things can come in, but we're designed to expand, right?
Right, exactly. And hopefully the audience hears this, that, you know, you may, wow, gee whiz, this is amazing, but we're all a part of this. We're all a part of this, you know, as we all go on our spiritual quest and get into our soul integration into the heart center, we're assisting each other. So we're all connected. So, I mean, I work with 3 teams, but everybody's part of the team, you know? So,
right.
You know, and because everybody has got their own light work that they're doing, albeit different in, you know, who is an energy healer, who's just, you know, a family member just trying to bring the kids up, who's doing their own self analysis and work and trying to be a better person, etc., or just any type of thing that comes from the heart. We're all part of the same team. Everybody's a team member and a leader in their own particular field. So I just happened to stumble into this one, or I was, you know, hey, we need you to do this.
Yeah, you were called. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about sacred geometry, but do you want to lead us more into what you want to share about ley lines and more things that you found as you've gotten deeper into this process of feeling called to clear sites that could be many thousands of miles away from you, right?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 miles away, and you would say, "Boy, that's awfully long." You know, for a line to exist, you know, a point here and a point there. But so, for example, you may have 2 events that are hundreds, if not thousands, of miles apart, and they affect each other, and they cause this negativity, for lack of a better word, or this static between themselves, and in your head, you say, well, that's kind of far apart. But don't again, go back to the analogy of your meridians here, where you may have something, you know, in your foot that they press to clear something in your neck, you know? So that's almost your whole body, right? So, and I'm using this as a baby, you know? So they're distance to us may be a lot, but to the planet, it's like, you know, from your elbow to your knuckles, you know? It's not really that far.
Right. Well, it's all energy.
Yeah.
So
let's go back a little. Yes, energy is good. Thank you for the lead-in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you have. Let's go through ley lines 101, and I'll give you some of them are designed. Most of them are designed at the beginning of creation. So when creation and the growth of the earth is not, even though it sounds like random chance, blueprint engineered down to the foot, you know, so by the elemental kingdom and angels that work and all sorts of high ascended beings. So when you had the beginning of the planet, you know, they Pangea, the supercontinent, that was all laid out ahead of time, knowing what was going to form where. So you would have life here and life there. The only variable in it was maybe the human race came in and kind of like did its thing to grow and help with that. And then, you know, things didn't kind of go like design. So let's talk about a ley line and between two mountains, or a mountain and a river. So it's kind of like, if you use the analogy of a radio station and your transistor radio, if you remember things like that, you had an antenna on it. There was a energy flashing from this point. And if you had your radio tuned directly to that flashing point, you would receive it. And if you had a transmitter here and you wanted to talk back, they would be flashing back and forth. So in the case of two mountains, they are energy centers. So for example, let's take Mount Shasta in California, Mount Mitchell on the East Coast, the highest mountain in the East and east of the Rockies, or Pilot Mountain in specific in the Southeast in North Carolina. They actually flock together, you know, and they're talking back and forth. There's an energy grid that forms between them, and that energy grid goes out either side of them. So you have this positive energy, well, good feeling, higher frequency energy that runs through there. Okay, so does that make sense to you?
Yes.
And how that works?
Yes.
Okay, so now the flip side is also true with that. If you have one area here that is a depressed area, and another one here that's a depressed area, these two miscoagulated energy get together and go out either way and cause disharmony or static around the Earth. So instead of having this beautiful flow of energy around the Earth, as it was designed from the beginning, through mountains to a mountain and a river to a mountain and a lake to lake, what have you, you have the human element coming in to enhance that and build on it. A lot of cities are built on ley lines, and the founding fathers kind of like, just a nice place, let's build a city here. Right. They were guided to these places, you know. So let's take human intervention, and in the case I wanted to show you, a nuclear detonation and nuclear detonation. Nuclear detonations really disrupt the quantum field in the different dimensions. You know, that's bad news, because you're taking all of that in quantum energy, for the lack of a better word, and you're boom, bringing it into the third dimension, and it just whammo, blows up big time. So when you get a nuclear detonation site and connect them, it forms this static ley line that chokes off the flow of the energy. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. It's like it chokes out some of the life force of Gaia, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it brings in this discordant energy.
Right.
So through guidance, and there's battlefields do this, wars do this, all sorts of human trauma and depression. And I can go on, that's a whole other story on that, but let's just stick with this one, the nuclear detonations. I was guided and I worked with the team to plot these, and thank God for Google Earth, because you're really easy to plot on Google Earth. One may say I could use a map, but a map doesn't take into consideration the curvature of the Earth. Mm-hmm. So you can draw a line between 2 points on a map, but it becomes distorted as to where it goes, because it doesn't take into consideration the globe itself. All right.
Yeah.
So using Google Earth, its formulas and software takes that into consideration. So we could do it easily on Google Earth. Started plotting. This was a job in itself. First, identifying all the nuclear detonation points, and then connecting them to find out if indeed there was static on these lines. And that's what we found. And I have a slideshow here quickly, if
please share.
Go through this fun of doing a shared screen and getting it to work right. And then after this, I like to go into maybe sacred geometry and how the geometry of the planet and creation helps us in our spiritual journey. Okay, because it's all kind of linked in. You know, you have the geometry of the planet, with laid grids and what have you. You have the geometry of your body, of your aura, and there's a higher form of geometry and creation. So,
It's powerful.
Let's do
a whole language that's coming back to us, right? Yes.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. And speaking of sacred geometry, there's one right there. That's called the Lotus of Life. That I made that, and it's beautiful. Okay, but anyway, let's get back here to static and ley lines.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so here we go. All right, here we are. These plots I did on Google Earth. This took about maybe 4 or 5 days of pretty intensive work to do the research and to find this out. Where do these ley lines go? You know, the ones from nuclear detonations. Now, we're a little bit limited here because the share screen doesn't get in all of the, this is a PowerPoint presentation, but I have to talk you through a lot of this. And if I'm going too fast, go ahead and interrupt, and you represent the audience now to make sure we got this right. So, all right. Let's find the cursor. So we see this here. This is Bikini Atoll, and this is Eniwetok Atoll. They're in the Central Pacific. And right after World War II, the US started really experimenting with nuclear detonations of bombs, the Bikini Explosion. You've probably seen the picture of that thing going off. And that was done here on Bikini Atoll. There was about, I think, about 4 or 5, maybe 10 nuclear detonations practiced here back in 46, 47, 48. And then it moved to Eniwetok, which is part of the same atoll system. Now, you know, an atoll is a reef with a calm bay and an island. They actually got all the residents of these atolls and moved them so they wouldn't be damaged during, relocated them, whether they liked it or not, by the way, because this was all part of national defense at the time, because the Soviet Union was now getting to be, you know, the next challenge.
Superpower.
Yeah, so at Eniwetok, they did nuclear tests, but also the first hydrogen bomb was set off at Eniwetok, first one. So now you have 2 particular sites. If you connect them, and I only connected the east-west, going from east to west line. So here you have the static nuclear ley line. And what I'll do is show you, I ran it across the Pacific, past Sumatra, and you can't see all of the writing up here, but Sumatra is up here. But here's Pulau Semulai, which is an island in Indonesia. But the line extends down here, and it does other stuff along the way. But this is toward the bottom of this grid, this static line. So, we okay?
Yeah, okay. It covers quite a grand space.
Yeah. This, this is, maybe about 15,000 square miles, 20,000 square miles of area in here. So maybe a little bit more, but considering the size of the planet, this is really getting, very, very right in the tip of your nose. And now you can't see it here because of the share screen, and I can't move this thing, but here is Nagasaki, and right up here in the corner, right off the screen, is Hiroshima. So now you have the 2 bombs let off to end World War II, so Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and if you connect the 2 going that way, which is, again, southwest in this point, and you keep them going south, it comes down over here. So here's the Hiroshima-Nagasaki line, and here is the line from Bikini and Eniwetok. You see how they're trying to concentrate in a certain area?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do some more. Now, I don't know if you can see, this. Now let's talk about the other side of the Iron Curtain. The Soviet Union and Red China also got into, the Soviet Union started setting off nuclear warheads in 1948. Somehow they got the secret. I won't get into that, but they had 2 nuclear test sites, one in Kazakhstan and the other one way up on the Arctic Circle, in this island called Novaya Selma up here. You see this? This isn't far, this is by the Arctic Circle, and way out of nowhere. Nobody lives up there because you just can't. They set off the largest nuclear warhead was a 200 megaton hydrogen bomb somewhere around here. in this northern part of the island. So I kind of put the mark there and extended that line. I don't know if you can see this down here. That line here comes through to the Lop Nord Chinese site, which started, I think, in the mid-50s. So this is the Lop Nord Desert. Sorry, this cursor disappears. And here is their site right here. They were setting off nukes all around this area. So if you keep this line going, here it comes down now back to Sumatra and this island south of Sumatra. See it? That's this one here. So now you have the convergence of these nuclear static ley lines.
Wow.
Okay, so now let's go some more. These other lines now, there are other nuclear test sites going on. The British did it in Western and Southern Australia, and India and Pakistan did it in their remote part of the deserts that surround their area. So these lines coming in over here connect the Indian and the Pakistani explosions with the ones in Australia, as well as this one here. Okay, this is from another part of Australia, big place, Australia. So now you see the convergence right around here. And this whole area is maybe about 20,000, 18,000 square miles. Again, the tip of your nose considering the whole body.
Right. Then this
and
is
do one more. You see where these lines are converging now. Remember we talked about mountains being transmitters, retransmitters. See, you have all of these mountains and volcanoes here. And of course, my cursor, where are you? You see these mountain ranges right here. These are up around 10, 11,000 feet. Here's volcano here. There's volcanoes off the screen. Mount Toba, which is that big one that blasted 70,000 years ago, wiped out half of the planet. They're all converted. All of these lines are converging right here. So you have this really hot spot. And this down here right below, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. You can't see it on the screen, is the Ring of Fire, which is where the tectonic plates come together. So now you have these mountains, tectonic plates crossing, and you have these static lines coming through from the nuclear blast that are now corrupting all of the energy flow around the planet, specifically right here. And then what happens next? Can you see that? The epicenter of the 2004 tsunami is in this grid area right here. Holy moly. That killed 250,000 people with the tsunami floods that came out. So the question was, did these ley lines help this? Did it bring it along? Did they weaken the planet in that particular spot to cause this volcano? Now, I did this and I needed some sort of like logic because I'm emotionally involved in this now, doing this weeks of research and bringing this all together and feeling the energy flow through me. So I brought it to a statistician, a woman who was an accountant, a statistical accountant for a corporation. And we met and I went through this whole thing and she said, let me study this. And she studied it, got back to me. She said, this is statistically significant.
Yes.
Statistically significant. So in other words, it's not necessarily random chance that this happened that way. It is significant, but now you need further research connecting every ley line to every volcano to show that it's true. And I could have done that, but that would have taken months worth of work. And I figured I was getting the energy. The guidance was, this really did happen. This caused this to happen. I had a reading from the Pleiadians who verified that this is kind of like the example they used was get a garden hose. That's the energy running around the planet, right? And if you get the garden hose and you twist it, what happens? It starts to buckle and all the pressure builds up, Bishop, and if the pressure is strong enough, boom, the garden hose will break. And that's what happened here.
Wow.
Okay, so the urgency to get involved with the healing process with the team was there over doing the rest of the work. Because I had found, again, in connecting various ley lines on my own, I just found like between Bikini and Hiroshima, I could extend that out I went into China, and there was a big earthquake in China on this line. It's one of the worst ever on that line, and the emotional toll on me in doing this is significant in a way, because you realize, well, I'm finding out why these people died, and it's not on purpose. It's kind of like the whole world event is happening with this Cold War and dropping bombs at each other and testing them first to make sure they work. So I kind of had to back out of this for a while. I said, I can't handle this. There's a lot of, but then you get through this, you get through it. And then the whole team I worked with, on both sides of the team, in the hierarchy and locally, on clearing all of this and neutralizing all of these spots. And it was just amazing clearing that the energy that came through was so beautiful. Once we started the higher energies coming through to clear that, after we had to do the work of identifying all of the nuclear detonations in the South Pacific, from France, and on Australia, in the United States, and in Nevada, just north of Las Vegas, in Russia and set them off. The Soviets set them off all over Siberia and in Europe. They was blowing the place, and plotting all of those and going online. And I think it was the University of Oklahoma did a study on this. So I just got all this stuff and downloaded. Like I found all of them in one big shot. And then we went in on Google Earth and we found each spot that was identified and we did a picture of it. And we put it in a big binder. And that was the grounding for the hierarchy to work with this and to do the clearing. We're the ground wire. Every time in electricity, you always need a ground wire. It ain't gonna work. So the earth and all of us are ground wires for higher energy. So we said, okay, yeah, we got it. This is it. Let's bring in the light to neutralize this. And a friend of mine at the time had this beautiful garden. And we asked permission if we could bring it into our garden because there was so much life there. There's so much good energy. And we actually dug a small hole and put this big binder down and covered it in plastic. And then, we did a small ceremony to help bring in the light. And I got to tell you, it was just amazing. I could start hearing Native American drumming. And this whole, in the realm right above, I was blessed enough to sense and see this. All these Native American spirits started dancing in this circle around us. And it was just, oh my gosh, I'm doing this Jackie Gleason thing, hamana, just watching this happen. And they're dancing around us. And then comes this beautiful Native American princess, this glowing young radiant. Now, there's a name for her too, and I forgot what it is, some sort of eagle, white eagle, I believe. I don't remember. She comes down and that energy was just so smooth and so loving. So here you have this book with months worth of work and all of this static negativity, more or less, and this beautiful energy coming down and just working with it. And at that point, I just, okay, it's about as much as I can handle, and it's going to be ongoing for a while. And we just kind of like came back down. It's in good hands now. The healing is going.
Yeah.
So that helped neutralize a lot of the, and I will say this, known reported nuclear sites, because what I found later on is that, oh, by the way, there's other sites that have not been reported that still causing havoc. Now, earthquakes are going to happen regardless, especially on the Ring of Fire, because that's just a natural process. But what I explained here is augmented it, gave it a focal point to make it worse.
Well, what comes to me when you share all this, of course, is that energy can't be destroyed. It can only be transmuted. And I think your team and all that you're talking about is transmuting energy that people can't necessarily see, but it can wreak havoc in our lives and on our world, or it can bring us into harmony, and it can amplify the original divine design.
Right, exactly. The original divine design is exactly. And this is a reflection of what goes on in our head. We create our own static, our own negativity, downgrading ourselves, downgrading judgmental. We create our own static ley line around us, so
right.
Got to be careful what you think, because every thought is a transmission, so.
It is, and
you're broadcasting on your radio.
Right.
What do you broadcast love and light? And if you can't, then you have to then work on that to get to a point where you can, and we're all doing that, I get to these points of, spiritually, I've made it spiritual ecstasy, and spirits go, really? Well, what about this? And boom, next thing you know, back in a judgmental type of thing. So you always have to try to be aware of what's going on and clear yourself. And
yeah, we're in this journey from, navigating the polarity that we've been, the duality, and also bringing it back into a neutrality, bringing it back into harmony. But it takes learning the language, it takes research, it takes activating your intuition and uncovering the awareness. The awareness is key. That we are these spiritual,
very, very important.
Yeah, that we're these spiritual beings having these human experiences. And when we allow that into our consciousness again, all this stuff comes alive, right? What you've discovered comes alive, but you can't see it until you're aware of it and you're allowing of it. And that's why a lot of people might look at these ley lines that you've mapped and say, there's nothing here, you know, or people are trying to manifest something and say, this doesn't work. We're really moving into this time of our original divine design, us as human beings, but as spiritual beings in human bodies and human vessels, of remembering that in the higher realms, you believe it and then you see it. In the lower dimensional realms, you have to see it. It has to be proven in order to believe it. And that's why we get trapped in these lower realms, right? And we can get trapped in the trauma because if we're looking at the outpicturing of our world, all we see is trauma, right? These earthquakes, all these nuclear reactions, all these things, families fighting, you know, all the discord.
Riots, political unrest, you know.
And when this matrix of the 3D realm can keep us focused on what we're seeing, and that we're trained that you have to see it to believe it, then we keep recreating the same treadmill of experiences, right? And that gets amplified. But if something comes into our experience, some kind of catalyzing experience, whatever that is, or a tap on the shoulder, I don't know a whole lot of people who just got tapped. I think a lot of people that are living in the realm of conscious creation were summoned in some way. They got an invitation to something more. And it was either some kind of hardship or a marriage dissolving or an illness or something called them to look at their lives differently, even 1 degree different, but it changes the whole picture. It changes everything that you're seeing. And then you start to realize you move through that a little bit as a creator, and you start to realize I'm a powerful creator and I can manifest and I can use the law of attraction. And we go through some of these universal principles and laws that are in fact laws of the universe. But I think as we move through all of that, we start to realize that the blessing is in the neutrality. The blessing is in the harmony when everything is integrated again, and we become participants in restoring that harmony inside ourselves and on the planet. And when I listen to you, Joseph, I just hear you've been on this journey to restore that harmony inside yourself on your own journey. And we all go through from polarity to neutrality, and we're in that journey right now somewhere. We're all in that journey. But when we can find ourselves and we can find ways to reset, we get pulled off the neutrality and we reset back to neutrality, and we get pulled wide again and we reset back to neutrality. That's a gift. And we all have these soul skills to do this and to reset these wounded areas on the planet too. There's where all these ley lines and all their effects of the static are creating more disharmony in our world. I'm so grateful that there are teams of people doing your part, that you're called in this way to bring this awareness to audiences here at Whole Soul Mastery, but also to just we're raising a frequency on the planet of awareness in this
together. Yeah, everybody, you know. I happen to be in what they call the spiritual construction and demolition crew, you know, so that the energy does rise, so people can get closer, the energy can come in closer to them. So there's a team of wonderful people who are doing that. You know, it's kind of like the construction crew who put in the interstate highways so you can drive to see your family or go someplace. That's what it's like. But let me add to you, can I add to about manifestation and seeing all of the conflict and identifying with the conflict as opposed to what's the purity of spirit that's within us. Let me ask everybody a question. Do you drive your car solely by looking into the rearview mirror? No. When we see through our eyes and our senses, and what we believe in out there is like driving your car through the rearview mirror. This is where you've been. This chaos is where you've been. And you're looking at the rearview mirror saying, wow, you know, everything is, but really the windshield is in our heart center. The windshield is within. This is where we should be, you know, we're focusing here and driving in the light and clearing all of this stuff so we can just be in the light, and we're wonderful. And even though life don't see that focus, we're wonderful, we're okay. And positive self-talk, and you know, fake it till you make positive self-talk until your windshield is clear. And then notice all of a sudden, like you look in the rearview mirror and go, which is really looking out here, you say, hey, that's really nice. Look at those beautiful trees, and look at the family and the love and the fun. This is really, let's keep going this way, back in the windshield, you know, type of thing. So if you use that analogy, and it's a friend of mine told me this, it's like driving your car looking through the rearview mirror. It's like,
so true.
you only want to do that if you're going backwards, you know, and you need to go at times backwards, maybe use that analogy to clear stuff in your inner child and all of that sort of stuff, clear that, and do a lot of inner child work, and just because never lose, you know, gateway to heaven. Jesus said, unless you be like a child, you won't enter the kingdom. So clear that all up, you know, and
right.
be innocent and happy again. So.
And there's so many aspects to everything that you just said. And this is like podcast number 1 of hopefully more together. But there's the chakra system, which we won't talk about too much, but there's, when we're clearing up all that trauma, you know, the things that are embedded in our chakras, we need this clear breathing tube, this clear seeing tube, this expression of divine energy that has gotten clouded and murky because we spent a lot of lifetimes here. We have like a lot of incarnational shrapnel, if you will, embedded in our fields. And then we keep, like you, seeing through the rearview mirror and be like, oh, that's painful. Oh, that, if I go that way, that's painful. And we live in a lot of this world of pain and suffering until we learn how to clear these vortexes of energy inside us, which are our chakra portals. And those are really interdimensional portals to access anything we could ever need. But when they're covered up with smog and moss and debris and trauma, you know, we tend to avoid what we don't understand or what feels uncomfortable, instead of saying there might be something in here, just like what you do when you do these clearings. And there might be some pretty scary or traumatic energy there. But
definitely,
when you have that fortitude to go into that with your team, which is amazing, the service you're giving to humanity, and you open it up, and you bring, you know, you let the clear energy flow through that was always there, but it was mucked up by all this painful debris. Yeah. And then you have a positive energy vortex that you've activated on the planet that has to be so rewarding. You talk about the dancing, you know, the Native American dancing and the drumming, but you're doing an inner dance because you know you're aligned with your purpose and you're aligned with these messages for humanity. I know that when I met you, I'd heard about ley lines, but when I hear you talk about ley lines, they come to life in my life, where otherwise that's not something that's always in my, you know, my peripheral vision. It's not always something, because I'm doing other things. I have other things I'm doing. But when we team up and my gifts and your gifts and more of us come together, the message of the new language, of this language, this soul language, our inheritance of the divine design returns to us. And I feel like you're bringing a huge piece of the divine design back into our awareness with the meridians and the energy centers and the energy and sacred geometry, which I think you're going to talk about a little bit before we close out for today. Anyway, let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. And thank you for your comments and nice words. And but all of us are part of the team. All of us are doing something. Every person seeing here, watching this in the world is somehow part of, we're all one, connected, and we're all fluctuating up and down and doing what we have to do in the quantum field to make it work. Some of us are out there, others are over here, some of us are over there, but we're all doing it. We're all doing it. Yes. So with that, let's, you want to jump to sacred geometry?
Let's talk about some sacred geometry, because it's all interconnected. Everything you're talking about, these are pieces that are building some spiritual scaffolding, if you will, for our listeners to understand that the ley lines and the sacred geometry, all of this connects. So yeah.
And we bring sacred geometry pieces with us, things that I have made when we go out to do a clearing. There's various type of pieces. Some are pretty heavy, you know, like this is one of the more recent higher energy ones. I could bring it right and show you here.
Nice.
It's made out of, it's pretty heavy, but this is called a chestahedron, and I'm not sure you can get it, but it stands like this, and it's
Wow.
7-sided equal. The energy coming out of this is, you know, way up there in the highest dimensions. And this is used, this will send out a clearing energy about 80 feet either side of it. I've built some that are not almost 9 feet high, and they go out a quarter of a mile. Powerful, very powerful.
Wow.
Anyway, so let's talk about the simpler stuff, and I'm gonna leave this off with a photograph, a picture of the sacred geometry that my friend Van Dorn Hinnett did. It was a specialist, spiritual man who works with sacred geometry, that people, if they want, can download it, and we'll talk about how that's done, so they could use it to assist in their meditation.
Perfect.
Okay, so
Perfect.
back in the old Christian days, we would call these holy pictures, you know, but now it's sacred geometry. So,
yeah.
so this is, I get this right, yeah. This is what they call the seat of life, okay? And, oops, there you go. This is the seat of life. And there are 7 rings here. And these are the rings represent the 7 days of creation.
Wow.
Right? And you notice how they form this flower petal here, and they all hit the center point. That center point is important because in a way that represents your heart center. Okay, and as you go through your stages of life, you bring these rings together to form the blossom of your life. So this is the value of the seat of life. This is called one of the primers of sacred geometry, because it gets the 7 rings. Of course, 7 is a sacred number. Puts them together to form this flower pattern. Now, there's another pattern called the flower of life, which builds off of this. But to me, this is and that's really, you know, getting into creation. But I just want to stay with this, because if you know, kind of put this on your heart center or what have you, it's a good way to just be reminded of the energy that we are, and bringing energy in from a higher dimension, like where we, you know, our higher self is, and into our hearts and minds, and then bringing it out into physical creation. Okay.
And Joseph makes these. He made that, right?
Yeah.
And
these are steel rings that I silver braze together or weld together, and then I put a crystal in the middle.
oh, there is a crystal. Yeah.
Nice.
And,
What a
and
fun.
there's 6 inches, about 6 inches circumference,
Yes,
right?
it's from 6 to 6. And I made these 4 foot across, big ones, you know, and
Right.
people put it up in their living rooms, and it's just beautiful the way it bounces off the energy in the house.
They are.
So, but the energy significance of this is good. This radiates kind of a love energy, a love and a joy energy.
Yeah.
Now, there are different types of geometry that transmit. A piece of this sacred geometry is kind of like the antenna on a radio, you know, it just, I'm a ham radio operator, so I'm into antennas and all sorts of stuff. So it brings in the energy and distributes it again, you know, just like an antenna picks up signals for your TV or your radio. Now it's the Wi-Fi on your internet, and brings it in, so it can be used. All right, so that's what this is. It brings it in, and you take it.
Right.
Now, there are a higher form. I got to be careful when I say higher form. It's different form of energy, because they're all good. You know, they're all. This brings love and relaxation and calmness. Where this one over my head here is called the Lotus of Life. That brings in enlightenment. This is on a different scale. Okay, if you would measure on a scale of 1 to 10, this is about a 5, which is good. And, you know, anger and frustration and despair is like 1 and 2 or 3. So this is raising energy, and this is on like a 8 to 9. This Lotus of Life, and I'm going to try to demonstrate how this Lotus of Life is higher dimensional energy coming down into where we are, 7th, 8th, 9th dimension coming down to where we are. And this is kind of like 5th, 4th, 3rd. Okay, so if you get this, just bear with me. You can put this right in here, and you'll see there is a flower of life right inside of this lotus of life. So it's this energy coming down and manifesting in the lower dimension. And the next slot I want to put up is the one I was talking about.
Yes.
And that'll show that better. His wheels get stuck in the carpet here. So, life in the third dimension. I
know.
So yeah.
I'm all for starship travel.
Yeah. Oh, that's another subject. Anyway, so so you have these different forms of energy in geometric patterns, and you can spend weeks talking about this. I'm trying to condense it down so everybody's got something to walk away with.
Yeah.
So let's do another screen share.
Yes.
Okay, so here you can see the seed of life, right?
Yeah.
And then and the seed of life and its influences in these rings that go around it. Now, again, Van Doorn hinted, this is his art. It's amazing the stuff, art he comes out with, and it's how he sees into sacred geometry. He's helped me a lot in my projects. And behind it is you have the Lotus of Life. Now, the Lotus of Life is based on 12 rings. And again, that sacred number 12. With one in the middle, it gets to 13. So that has other numerical significance to it. So here you have higher dimensional energy. Let's say dimension number 876 dimension, changing its frequencies to come into our dimensions. And it's doing that through the seed of life right here. So you have higher energy coming down, focusing. Boom, and you've got it. So you've got the seed of life, which is here we are, but if we expand it and go deeper, you go into the Lotus of Life. So this is a particular all-encompassing, highly encompassing sacred geometry in 2 dimensions, by the way. When you get into 3 in different dimensions, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more meaningful. But to work with, since we work in a 2-dimensional world, our brain runs on 2 dimensions. There you are. You had this as a real a good way to look at it, just to get that inner feeling of balance and harmony. So.
Wow, that's an extra. Is that a painting, a drawing?
It's a
digital art.
It's a paint. It's a drawing, colored. But you see all the radiance going around on the outside of the ring. You know.
So gorgeous.
And then the different color rings. And he's got others that he has done with the Lotus of Life that are in color. But to me, this one was particular and special because you see behind it the more of the petals. Now, this is the Lotus of Life. Normally, I don't have a picture of it, but the one over my head there is this, but it's all more recessed. And when you bring it out, you see the flower of life.
Yes,
so this is an ideal multi-dimensional sketch.
Illustration, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if you were to expand this into 3D, I'm going to flip real quick.
Yeah.
We go back. All right, so does everybody see this? Are we okay with it? And this is going to be available somehow. You'll make that available to people?
We're going to work on making that available through a blog post I'll do, and they can link to see this image.
Yeah, and Van Doorn has given his permission to do that.
That's great.
And if you want an official printed version, you can work through him, and maybe we'll put that on the blog.
We can put the link.
Yeah. Okay, so now if you remember what this looks like, what I'm going to show you here is what it would look like if you were to get it and expand it.
Wow.
So that's the Lotus, that's the energy grid, the Lotus of Life. And its numerical sequence is in tune with 432 hertz music. And that's another lecture. But you see these lower points here. This is the lower chakras coming up to the heart center. And here are the higher chakras going out. So this would be your aura field going, spinning around your creation, your life here, your heart center, and higher chakras, lower chakras, going around into, higher self, down into Gaia, and back up over here into your, up to your feet, into your chakra system, and back out again.
It's also an illustration, isn't it, of the toroidal field? Is it?
To a degree, yeah. The toroidal field is, yeah, but this is a refined toroidal field. Okay. Now, I would like to give credit to whoever did this. Unfortunately, I saw this on the internet and I downloaded it like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah. And I'm sorry, whoever did this. Thank you very much. And you can give us your name and we'll make sure you get credit for it. But I don't know who did this, but it's absolutely
stunning.
This is what you would see in the Lotus of Life if it was more or less 3-dimensional, or what it would look like in the higher aura fields. And every one of these lines has got different energy patterns in them. I was fortunate once to be taken and shown what the human aura looks like. And all of those energy grids running around are all vibrating in different geometric patterns and with different type of angel writing on it, just magnificent. And they vibrate. And when they vibrate, your aura vibrates, it sends out a song. And that song is you. We have our own song, and this is how the higher realms identify us, by our song. Over here, it's our name. Up there, it's our sound, song. So it was just a wonderful gift that I was given. So yeah, we're all musicians, we're all singing.
Right?
All those music lessons in the first grade paid off.
Well, everything that you shared is a gift, because also in the earlier slides of the ley lines and where nuclear things were set off, that's kind of the darkness and the static.
Geometry.
Right?
Bottom of the class.
Awesome. Right?
Yeah. I'm a geometry freak. Sorry.
Right. It was everywhere. I mean,
sorry to mean
geometry built our world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And us. And so, but it's interesting to understand too, a lot of people listening know that we've been these higher dimensional beings, that we evolved and descended out of some version of a collective choice into this lower dimensional realm. We went from light to density and a greater darkness. And now the light is bringing light to the darkness again to neutralize and help us integrate. And we're going from dark to light. And this is that ascension process. That's what the ascension process is. And there's many aspects of the earth. There's many parts of the world that need this kind of healing. Many of us in our own physical bodies, we need this kind of healing. We're all finding our way to it because we're all being summoned back to that heart center, that pulse, that crystalline energy that's in the center of your seed of life that you have. And you bring just so much rich language and understanding, and we've just probably scratched the surface today of a lot of things we can talk about. Because this is an area that I know I personally I don't delve in too often. I feel the energy. I'm such a sentient being. I feel it. And when people do clearings, I can feel that. But when you guys do the work that you do, and you literally bring your skill sets on site, or you direct it to these places on the planet, and you're you're emancipating the earth herself, right? And for what did you say that Mother Earth said to you? She's looking for intelligent companionship.
Yeah, she doesn't need to be healed, just needs intelligent companionship. Somebody to talk to.
Right.
and to talk back at that level, and the best you can,
Spirit wants this two-way communication, which is when our chakra portals and our energy fields and our Merkabas and the toroidal energies, I mean, all these things bring us back alive. And it's amazing that we do even think we're alive in this lower density that we've been in for so many lifetimes, because we're just a fraction, right? A fractal of what our true song is, our true light is. But we're on the return, right? We're on the return.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And one term that comes to me, nobody's left behind. We all have to rise together as much as possible.
Yes, we are. And like somebody else that I've listened to in the past James Gilliland of the Ascetti Ranch. He tracks a lot of UFO phenomenon, but his phrase that I resonated with the most is that we have to become frequency specific to the new earth.
Yeah.
Everything is about frequency. Everything is energy. And we're going to be learning this. You know, some of us hit some walls with ourselves, or we resist, or we push it away. We're moving back into a higher consciousness where everything is energy again. And we know this. We live this and we embody this. And your sacred geometrical art, if you have that in your home, I have a seed of life from you, and I have a flower of life from you in my house. And we've talked about the seed of life that you show. You can hold that up again if you wanted to, but people can order that from you directly through your website, but they could also order it through Whole Soul Mastery. We just need to get that up on the website, and people can place orders for that. And you can use it. I think you even at one time, we can call it a tile coaster, right? Or
that's another artist. Yeah. Yes, she does that. The coasters.
Okay, there's coasters.
Geometry in it. Yeah. Or the seed of life could be used as a coaster.
As a coaster.
You don't put the crystal in, you can just put it down and energize your drink.
Right, energize your drink, which is phenomenal. So we can learn more about that, or I'll post more about that, what I'm doing on my site at buymeacoffee.com, and it's Whole Soul Mastery, right? People will see us. I can post more information, anything else we want to share in there. They'll get the link where they can see those pictures, and they can download that, and they can find out more information, also where to find you and contact you. So can you just share with our audience now, and I'll make sure to put that in the description so people can access it quickly. What's the name of your website?
metalgeometricart.com.
Okay.
metalgeometricart.com. And if anybody wants to contact me, they can just contact my email, which is metalgeometricart@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Well, this has been great.
Thank you so much for
all
all
your audience. You know, I've been doing this for what? Man, I started back in the 90s, 1990s, working. I can go on for hours talking about all these different clearings, you know, from 9/11 up to like last week.
Right, you've got some stories, and I think we should do that. I think it would bring these what you've shared today to life when you hear people tell the stories, and so we should do that. I'll have you back, and we'll definitely share more. And so,
sure.
But I want to thank you for joining me today. And of course, our listeners can find us at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube and Color the Magic. I'm sharing a lot of these videos there as well, my channel there. And you can also find us at rumble.com, minds.com, and gab.com. And I'll put all of these links in the description section of the video where you can find us, because when something feels good like this, you feel this amplified positive energy, you want to be a part of it. You want to tap into it. And I surf the web by frequency. Everything that I do is by frequency, right? I'm listening all the time. With my antenna. So find us and spend some time with us and enjoy a lot of Joseph's creations that are pretty extraordinary. And we'll have you back hopefully very soon. So thank you. Bye for now.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Bye.